Okay. Okay. Good afternoon.
Good
And
afternoon.
welcome back, Laurie. I'm so glad that you've joined me to do another chat. I really appreciate it. You have been a very inspiring individual for me to watch grow. It really is so inspiring to see someone demonstrate the courage and the integrity you have. And I mean that sincerely from the bottom of my heart. I truly do. So you chose the subject for today's chat. Do you want to dive in and let us know why you chose this subject?
Yeah, so I really wanted to discuss accountability because this is something that I've been on the journey for a few years now. And I used to think, like, oh, when you take accountability, everything fixes itself right away. And there's little bits and pieces that have come into my life now that for decisions, I'll just share, like financially, I was like, oh, okay, like things I used to do when I was unconscious and be more on the path of like wanting people to like me and giving and doing and all of that. And so I would overgive and overspend and overdo things for that, you know, wanting to be liked. And, you know, so for me now, I've gone through some different changes, and I found that like those pieces have started to come up for me, like where there's a little bit of, challenges or a little struggle around those pieces of, okay, I overspent and overdid things, and now something major came up in my life, and it was like, okay, well, if you had saved and did things differently then it wouldn't be as challenging for you right now. And I know it came up to give me that learning piece so that I could look at this and go, okay, I won't make those mistakes again. And this is going to be the outcome if that happens. And so I wanted to talk about that because I think it's really powerful. And I also wanted to get your opinion on ask you a question about like when it comes to accountability and when it comes to like a financial situation like that, does that accountability for past things also go together with lack, or are those two separate pieces?
Okay, so we'll ask that question in a second here. So your first question was about how do I clean up when I was people pleasing for approval?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's a big one because we are always, we got a little bit of feedback here, so we'll apologize for that. We will always people please for approval until we practice self-love, self-trust, and self-respect. So until we're giving ourselves what we have been programmed and socially conditioned to get from outside of ourselves, until we give it to ourselves, we're all going to practice that behavior at one time or another. Okay. So if somebody says, well, I don't do that, well, that simply means that you figured it out either earlier in this lifetime or in a previous lifetime, where you just don't care what other people think once you get to that place where you love and respect yourself. So as we're taking responsibility, which is, yes, I did it, I own it, I caused it, and then accountability, which is, I'm going to clean it up, it becomes important to continue to practice that self-love and self-respect. So the first thing is, don't beat yourself up for it. Okay. I see what I did while I was unconscious, and that's okay. I see what I did. I take full responsibility for it. And now I'm going to take accountability. And accountability is the piece where we clean it up. And a component of accountability is self-discipline. Self-discipline is really important, and self-discipline can be everything from no, you're not going to eat the whole chocolate cake, or no, you're not going to eat any cake, depending on what you've decided to do, to I'm also going to discipline myself not to criticize myself or condemn myself in any way. And what this does is it gives us the ability to keep our frequency as high as possible. The higher the frequency, the more ease and flow. Oh, right? So if we start shaming and blaming ourselves for things that we did in the past while we were still living outside of ourselves, okay, seeking that approval and acceptance outside of us, then if we beat ourselves up for that, we're essentially pulling ourselves back into another unconscious loop, just in a different way. So number one, self-love, self-love, self-love. And it might look like, oh, golly, I was really a ding dong. Look what I did. Gosh. And you may even want to take a moment to just say, wow, that inner dialogue, that inner voice, that inner comfort to say, wow, you were really hurting back then. So let me give you a hug now. Let me give you some self-love, inner dialogue, a hot bath, whatever that might look like, so that you feel witnessed and validated. You feel comforted. Okay. And then the next step is to discipline yourself, to clean it up without criticizing yourself. Okay. You don't know what you don't know until you know what you know. And it's really important we don't beat ourselves up for what we didn't know.
Now, is there a part of that that may be coming up as well in the life that's creating those challenges, where there's something maybe rising up below that could kind of like put you on the brink? Is that why it would kind of come up later?
Well, we want to remember that divine grace never takes us anywhere that it can't guide us and protect us. And we're never given more than we can handle. So things that rise up, okay, rise up in an order that divine grace, God, the universe, whatever you want to call it, higher consciousness recognizes is the order that it needs to come up in, so that we can successfully manage it. Okay. And this is also a really good reason to remain present in this moment now, to put our attention and energy into being present in this moment now. Because if we essentially, we start to wake up, we start to see what's going on, and then we go back to sleep, we're going to miss the cues that come up to clear things out. So we want to remember everything. This is really, really important. Everything is exactly as it needs to be. We also want to remember that when we come into the physical reality, we literally forget who and what we really are. And while we forget who and what we are, much like somebody who's severely inebriated, you're going to do and say things that are potentially going to be something that you regret the next morning, including the hangover. Okay, so it's really akin to being drunk out of our minds. And although getting drunk is something that you most definitely can control, coming into the physical reality and forgetting who and what we are is a natural and necessary part of the game. So it's really important to remember that. Okay, and again, back to self-discipline in your thoughts. Don't beat yourself up for getting wet when you got pushed into the ocean. Everybody gets wet when they go into the ocean. So continue to practice that self-love and that self-respect, and trust the process. Trust the process. Everything is as it needs to be. Everything is coming up right on time. I'm not going to be given anything that I can't actually handle. And then it becomes our choice to decide whether or not we're going to handle it. And it may ask us, and it typically does, ask us to expand our consciousness, to expand our tools, to change out old mindsets that don't serve us. In order to meet the challenge that rises up, we're going to have to go outside of our comfort zone. So there's another tip. Get comfortable with being outside your comfort zone, and you'll find, and I know that you've done this many, many times. You have grown and changed so much. It's just so beautiful to see someone that is so courageous in embracing this growth. We will recognize that you're going to pretty much remain outside your comfort zone, apart from times when you're taking a break. Like, I'm going to go and have a hot bath and a cup of tea and leave me alone. And then I'll get back up and go back out there and take care of what needs to be done in order to continue to expand my consciousness. So getting comfortable with outside the comfort zone,
And
normalizing the growth that
I,
happens
I was
outside the
going to
comfort
say,
zone.
I love that, because I think that getting outside the comfort zone too is like the universe's way of, pushing you to grow and to learn new things as well. Because if not,
I just
I
want to
feel like you
interject
won't learn.
quickly. We're not being pushed. We're being invited.
Okay. Yeah.
We're not being pushed. We're never pushed. Everything that happens here is free will. And essentially, if somebody is finding that there's a lot that they need to clean up and take accountability for, then they're going to really essentially recognize that while they were drunk, while they were unconscious, they did a lot of things that didn't actually serve and support who and what they really are. So when it feels like it's coming in waves, it's essentially mirroring the fact that you denied the truth of who and what you are so much that when we start to awaken, it can feel overwhelming like a tidal wave, because whatever we suppress, okay, whatever we repress has to eventually come up one day or another, one way or another, to be released. Okay. It's like imagining that we are a clean glass of water. Okay. And the water will continue to filter and filter and filter until all toxins are removed. Okay. Now, if you filled your glass full of crap, well, it's going to take a little bit of time to filter it out. Okay. So be patient with the process. Again, loving self-care is the fastest path to enlightenment, to remembering who and what we are, and to practice that path with discipline. Now, let's be clear about what discipline is. Discipline is not punishing yourself. Discipline is not pushing yourself. True discipline comes from an inspired state, and inspiration comes with its own energy. If you've got to motivate someone by pushing them, then the battery is going to run low fast. So discipline is essentially saying, I'm going to go outside of my comfort zone right here and right now so that my future self is going to thank me. This feels uncomfortable and awkward right now, but I know that if I don't clean it up, and how do I know it's time to clean it up? Because it's come up, divine timing. Okay. If I don't clean it up now, it's just going to come back another day in a bigger way. So I don't want it to get any bigger than it is. So I'm going to discipline myself to go outside of my comfort zone now, take responsibility, and then accountability. Accountability is to course correct and redirect. Do so without shame. Do so without blame. Do so from a place that recognizes that accountability, taking responsibility, accountability, and self-discipline are some of the greatest acts of self-love we will ever commit. Let that sink in. It's really important.
I'm going to come back and listen to that again because I want that to really sink in. And I had a question on that where you were talking about the discipline and being pushed, it won't work. Is there some level though of like pushing yourself? Because there's things that obviously sometimes you're like, I just don't want to do that. Is that important too in the discipline piece though, sometimes to push yourself if it's something that.
Yeah. Well, if we're talking about procrastination, that's another subject.
Mhm.
Okay. So procrastination is, another video.
Yeah.
If we're just talking about, basically that inner dialogue that could look like, you know what? You don't want to go through this experience again. You're going to talk to yourself. This was really painful, and I'm not thrilled about having to clean it up. And what I know is that if I don't clean it up now, it's going to get worse, and it's just going to get harder and harder to clean up. So as an act of self-love, I'm going to discipline myself to do it now. And this is where love listing, which is a daily record of things you appreciate and successes that you've had and witnessing yourself, absolutely. A daily practice of that can really, really help, because you go back and read the love list and you go, wow, I'm reading right now how good I felt the last time I cleaned up my last cleanup. Okay. And it felt so good. And you recognize this as soon as we do this, as soon as we take accountability and responsibility. Okay. As soon as we do that, we feel the lift. We feel the shift in our frequency as our body, our energetic body and physical, literally become lighter. And the reason for this is that we are the truth. We've been programmed to believe that our subjective perspective is the truth. That is not correct. The truth is who and what we are. And liars and cheaters never grow. Why is it that liars and cheaters never grow? Because you're a being made of truth. And in order for you to expand and grow and be that incredible, magnificent, beautiful, omnipotent being that you are, then you have to do it on the terms of divine creation. You have to do it on the terms of the being that you are. So we're made of light. We're made of love. Integrity is our way. Peace is our language. Compassion is our way of being. So if we're not being those things, we can't grow. So liars and cheaters never grow. And we want to remind ourselves that if we start to really care about how we feel, I care about how I feel. And while I'm carrying around this lie, while I'm carrying around this crime I committed, this imbalanced act while I was unconscious, while I was drunk, while I was out of balance, I have to carry that around with me until I clean it out. And once I clean it out, I'm going to feel really, really good. So this is what I call, I'm going to tell you I'm going to rip the Band-Aid on 3 and I'm going to rip it on 2. Right? Because we want to get rid of it. And we start to really quickly recognize, no, I'm going to do this. It feels like crap and I'm not enjoying it. But you know what? I know better now and I love myself and I care about how I feel. So I'm going to clean this up really quickly and I'm inspired to do it. And then something really beautiful becomes obvious, which is that from that inspired state of self-love, cleaning it up gets really, really easy. And this is where we start to release judgment and criticism and all those negative programs that we've been taught are supposed to accompany growth. Okay, so get rid of the idea that we have to get rid of the idea around improving ourselves. We're not improving ourselves. That's a lie. And that puts us back into the reality of polarity: good, bad, right, wrong, superior, inferior, failure, success. Okay. And as soon as you're polarized, you're stuck in the ego. And we want to replace it with remembering who we are, discovering who we are. And while we were asleep, while we were drunk, okay, we forget who we are and we do some ding dong things. And as we're waking up and as we're remembering, as an act of self-love, we clean it up, course correct, redirect, and move on. And it gets easier and easier to do that. If we practice criticism and judgment, it creates resistance, and it's going to make cleaning it up even harder. So self-love, everything is exactly as it needs to be. We come into this experience to forget who we are so we can remember who we are. You're not here to make yourself better. That's a lie. And along with that comes judgment. We're here to remember who we are and to release what we are not. It's a powerful but subtle shift in perspective. I hope this helps.
It does. And can I add that other little piece that I wanted to ask that I started in the beginning? Um, does like when you're cleaning up and going through all the things, and obviously you made some ding dong decisions when you were unawake, so you do have to clean that up. So like when it comes to like a finance situation, does lack mentality, like, can that play a piece, or are
Oh,
those two
yes.
separate
Yes.
pieces?
Lack mentality
Okay.
can come into it. And that, in fact, might be your next opportunity for remembering, for growth, for expansion, which is to say, okay, I made some financial decisions, which I'm now feeling the pinch of. Okay, I've learned my lesson. However, I need more cash. Okay, so that enters into a whole other subject, which is abundance mentality, which is really, really um, there's so much shame and programming attached to being worthy of the abundance, and some can have it and some can't. And is there a finite amount? And while everybody knows that they're just printing money, that's what's creating inflation, right? And I do believe the Federal Reserve just pumped another 29.4 billion, just printed it and pumped it into the system. So that's actually a really good way to look at it, which is I've created a need for more, so I'm just going to create more. So that's another subject that we could do a whole separate video on as well. But lack mentality at its core, whether it's I lack love, I lack food, I lack finances, I lack community, whatever it is that you lack, is an indicator that you're living from the separate state. You're living from a mindset or a level of consciousness that still forgets who and what you really are. We are creation itself. Humans, not the other beings. Humans are creators. And our imaging system, our imagination, is how we create what we desire. Okay? The difference between the elemental kingdom, which is animals, and humans is that they don't have an imaging system. We have an imaging system. And one of the challenges that we need to overcome is recognizing that we have been socially conditioned and programmed over eons of time to believe that once you lack, or if you're not worthy, or if you come from a certain background, or it's possible for others but not you, remember, Where your attention goes, energy flows. What you think, you become. So this is potentially a part of the filtration process. You recognizing that, okay, I have a need here and I have a choice. I can continue to buy into lack mentality, or I can remember who and what I am and simply fulfill that need by creating it. And one of the foundational tools for that is faith. Okay? Faith is absolutely essential. And faith in what? Faith in who and what you are. And remembering who and what we are after eons of indoctrination, inversion, and distortion. Remembering who and what we are is not something that happens overnight, as you know yourself. It happens in stages and degrees. And this is actually done out of compassion, because we couldn't remember by flipping a switch who and what we are. It would be too much for the system. And you can't climb a ladder from the top rung first. You got to work your way up. Okay. So it's really important to recognize that. And as you're releasing this and you're releasing that, we're revealing more layers that we want to release. The next one for you is around lack mentality. When we experience lack mentality in any way, we have essentially in that area still not fully remembered who and what we are. And lack is the proof of it. Because when we're in alignment with who and what we are, when we are being our true self, our true nature, we lack absolutely nothing. So there's your next opportunity, right? And with each challenge, we're given the perspective of duality: good, bad, right, wrong, success, failure, or it is what it is. What am I going to do with it? Everything happens for a reason. Everything is a gift. And if I hold that perspective, then I'm going to be able to remain present and see that the tools that I need to overcome this challenge come in with the challenge. But I will not see those, excuse me, I will not see those tools and gifts. 1 second, please. I will not see those tools and gifts if I'm busy resisting, if I'm busy judging. I've got to remain open, and that's going to require courage, self-discipline, self-love. It's going to require that we learn to support ourselves. You know, again, this is a simple process, but not an easy process. I hope that helps.
Yeah. This has been really helpful. Thank you very much.
Oh, you're really welcome. Thank you so much, Laurie. And we can come back and do other chats again if you would like. And if anybody would like more information about what we're doing, you can join us on our network, LynetteElinda.com. We talk about this stuff all the time, and we're seeing tremendous growth for the members. This is a path where you will see the result as you have yourself, Laurie. You're a completely different woman than the woman I met a few years ago. Okay. So this is a path of self-love, and it's so important. Just before we go, I want to remind us to practice self-love on a daily basis, to validate and witness ourselves like we would a child. Oh, good job. Give it to yourself. Good job. You're doing it. You're achieving it. You cannot screw this up. It's just a question of how much are you going to allow yourself to remember of the truth of who and what you really are, and how much do you still feel the need to block and to resist, right? Everything is as it needs to be. We're right on schedule, and it's an incredibly exciting time to be in this human experience, to be on Earth right now. So
Yes, it is.
thank you, Laurie, and I'll see you again
Thank
soon.
you.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.